These days, you can't walk 2 feet without tripping on a multiverse. It's like, hey man, move your multiverse. It's all up in my other multiverse. We have the Spider-Verse, a multiverse of madness, and whatever they decided to call the one in the Flash movie, I still don't know. And let's not forget that a couple of years ago, the Best Picture winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, is all about multiverses. Multiversal shenanigans are all the rage in film and TV, but really, they've just finally caught up to what has been incredibly common in comic books. Comic readers have dealt with multiversal nonsense for 1 million years. Marvel and DC each have multiple different universes, each designated by a numerical system. In Marvel, the mainline universe is 616.
And we've designated yours 616.
While in DC, the main universe is 1. Much easier to remember. Major comic events of the past, like Crisis on Infinite Earths and Secret Wars, all collapsed or rebooted the various universes in continuity, and different iterations of characters from other universes meet on a semi-regular basis. It is the oldest of hats. The assumption, it seems, is that viewers nowadays are savvier when it comes to this kind of metatextual world building.
Wait, you dig on multiverses?
It's as much Rick Dalton gif as it is a storytelling device. Anything can happen in the multiverse, but even if you've never read a comic, all you had to do was grow up in the 90s and watch Marvel cartoons to understand just how weird and confusing such a multiverse can be. From 1992 through 1999, no fewer than 8 different cartoon series aired for at least one season. But this was not one big happy animated universe like the DC one was. Oh no! Oh, the luxury of knowing Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, and Justice League all exist in the same continuity.
I have no idea who this is.
Wading through the absolute mindfuckery of the Marvel shows is another matter entirely. You'd certainly assume one of two things. First, that the Marvel cartoons all of course took place in the same continuity. If there are crossovers, it only stands to reason. The other option is that they each take place in their own separate continuity, divorced from ever referencing any of the other shows. Oh, sweet spring child. There is in fact a multiverse of different versions of these options. Some shows cross over cleanly, some never cross over at all, but much more frequently, these shows cross over characters but not specific versions of the characters, even though all the shows were airing at or around the same exact time. The Marvel cartoons of the decade aired on 2 networks mostly. Most of them were on Fox Kids, while the others were syndicated or on UPN. For those of you too young to remember, the UPN, or United Paramount Network, was an American broadcaster roughly on a par with the WB. In fact, the two of them merged in 2006 to form the CW. What weird days those were. At any rate, I had a basic memory of the UPN shows crossing over and some of the Fox shows crossing over, and that being it. But that would have been way too easy. After revisiting these series, all on Disney Plus now, it turns out they have some wild and wholly inconsistent standards for shared continuity, even within the same networks. Parsing out exactly which of these shows do or don't take place in the same universe has given me sleepless nights. I had weird dreams because of this. Why doesn't any of it make sense? Someone tell me why it doesn't make sense! Shocker! To give you a sense of the madness I'm working with here, let's do a quick refresher of the shows in question. First, you got your X-Men the Animated Series in 1992. This is the grandpappy of Marvel cartoons, and is still one of the best written and most beloved of all Marvel shows. That theme song alone is mwah, Pizza Chef. It ran for 5 seasons with a total of 76 episodes. That episode total, by the way, was the highest ever for a Marvel cartoon and remained that until 2012's Ultimate Spider-Man eclipsed it with 104. X-Men 92 is so beloved that it's the one getting a continuation 30 years later with X-Men 97. They only moved 5 years in 30 years. The next Marvel cartoons of the era came in a pair. Both Iron Man and Fantastic Four premiered September 24th, 1994 as part of the syndicated The Marvel Action Hour block. This is a little tricky because in some markets it aired on Fox Kids, in others, like Denver where I grew up, it aired on the station that became UPN, and in still others it was on the nascent WB network. Very confusing. Both shows ran for 2 seasons of 13 episodes per season. We'll get more into that later, but the second seasons of each show are drastically different from the one prior, which adds to the delightful multiversal tomfoolery. Later in 1994, you get arguably, though I'm not sure who'd argue against this, the second most popular of the Marvel animated series, Spider-Man. Shocker! another shred-filled theme song, this one by Joe Perry of Aerosmith, and another superb adaptation of the comics. This one ran for 65 episodes across 5 seasons. It's also, God help us, the show that is the most responsible for the multiverse discrepancy, so it has a lot to answer for. Looking at you, Peter. Next, beginning in 1996, we have The Incredible Hulk, which ran for 2 seasons with a total of only 21 episodes. You'd be forgiven for forgetting the show even existed, since, as the sole UPN-only series, it was probably the hardest to find. It aired on Sunday mornings, too, which was a notoriously rough day to try to get kids to watch Saturday morning-ass cartoons.
Hulk lost. Hate Big City.
The last 3 of the 90s are fairly unaffected by the multiverse, but worth mentioning all the same. All of these were on Fox. First up, we have 1998's Silver Surfer, which lasted a single season of 13 episodes. A shame because it was awesome. Then we have the Batman Beyond variant known as Spider-Man Unlimited, which also only lasted 13 episodes, but which somehow spanned from 1999 through 2001. And finally, the death knell of the 90s Marvel cartoons, The Avengers United They Stand, which ran from 1999 to 2000 with 13 episodes. Despite the title, it's more of an adaptation of West Coast Avengers. It featured a team consisting of Ant-Man, Wasp, Wonder Man, Tigra, Hawkeye, Vision, and Scarlet Witch. Nothing about this one crosses over with anything else, so it won't factor into our multiversal talk at all. It's also not a good show, so avoid this one like the plague. So now we know the culprits. How could things have gotten so rough in a span of only a few years? I think it was down to 2 very important factors. 1, character rights. And 2, complete indifference on the part of the people making the shows.
Obviously.
All of these series had different creative teams, and Marvel, being what it was at the time, had licensed all these particular properties to different production houses. It also wasn't really a thing at the time for cartoons to take place in the same universe at the same time and have periodic crossovers. In the incredibly consistent DC animated universe, only Superman and the New Batman Adventures crossed over while both were on the air. And even then, it only happened on 2 occasions. So I've beaten around the bush long enough. Let's dive into the shows and see where the wheels fell off the multiversal wagon. We're going to go character by character just so you can see how wildly inconsistent these things are. Let's start with the titular characters and then go from there. First up, we have the X-Men. They, of course, appear on their own show, as well as a couple of appearances on Spider-Man the Animated Series. This one is very easy. The X-Men who appear on Spider-Man have the same character design, the same voice actor, and even the same leitmotif as they have on X-Men the Animated Series. No doubt about it, these X-Men are the same X-Men from their own show. Fun fact, Wolverine was supposed to appear in the episode of The Incredible Hulk where the big greenie fights the Wendigo, but that never happened due to rights issues. What could have been? Spider-Man is also pretty easy because pretty much he only appears on his own show, save for a single silent cameo appearance on the X-Men series before the Spider-Man series had launched. Take a breather here. This Spider-Man is the same Spider-Man. Now, there are many different iterations of Spider-Man within Spider-Man the Animated Series, but that's a function of story and not weird multiversal stuff. Iron Man appears on Iron Man, voiced by Robert Hayes. You know, from Airplane.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
This version of Tony Stark hews very closely to the comics of the time, including overcoming a drinking problem and needing Stark tech to help him overcome spinal paralysis. This Iron Man also appears on Spider-Man and The Incredible Hulk. Same actor, same incarnation. So maybe this isn't difficult at all. Wrong, wrongo! Okay, so the Fantastic Four. Let me remind you, the Fantastic Four premiered on the same exact day as Iron Man. That series and Iron Man never didn't have a new episode on the same day. Okay? Okay. So with that in mind, the Fantastic Four premiere on their own show, though in different guises even within that. Their first season was a cartoonier animation style and more comedic takes on the comic stories. It was a bit hokey and had some lame humor at times. I don't particularly care for it. However, the second season of the show got much more serious and the animation style fell more in line with the other series, and while they retained almost the exact same voice cast, it felt like a totally different show. The Season 2 darker versions of Reed Richards and Ben Grimm also appear on The Incredible Hulk later on. Iron Man, as I said a moment ago, also appeared on The Incredible Hulk, though he and the FF never crossed over. Also very important. The Fantastic Four appeared on Spider-Man the Animated Series in an episode that also includes the same exact version of Iron Man and the same X-Men. And yet it's a totally different Fantastic Four. Different voice cast, different suits, different everything. We're just getting warmed up here. We move on to The Incredible Hulk. This is truly unhinged. So Hulk appeared in both Fantastic Four and Iron Man series. In both cases, he was voiced by Ron Perlman, who took on the roles of both Hulk and Bruce Banner.
Who are you? Why, I'm your friend, Dr. Doom. Rick Jones is Hulk's only friend.
When UPN launched the Incredible Hulk series, it is demonstrably not the same Hulk. Lou Ferrigno, who was the live-action Hulk in the 70s and 80s, took on the snarls and roars of the Hulk while Neil McDonough played Banner.
Hulk?
Friend, not hurt?
Okay, fine, you say. Hulk is just in a different continuity. Except did you already forget the same exact Fantastic Four from that animated series appears on The Incredible Hulk? You might next argue that since the FF from their own show weren't on Spider-Man and neither was Hulk, that they exist in the same universe as each other. But let me again remind you, the Ron Perlman Hulk appeared on Fantastic Four and Iron Man. The same Iron Man who was on the Spider-Man show and in this Hulk series. How can this be? F you, that's how! Was that big enough?
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Okay. The Spider-Man, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, Hulk shenanigans continue once we get to a non-titular character. To get the easiest one out of the way, Silver Surfer and Galactus appear on Fantastic Four, as does Uatu the Watcher, and all three of them appear on the Silver Surfer TV series. However, they are completely different versions from one show to the next. Uatu also appears on X-Men, but it's probably yet a third different weird version. What if it were the same version? What if it were the same version? See what I did there? Captain America, you know him, the Star-Spangled Man with the plan. He appears on X-Men in Season 5 as a flashback to when Wolverine helped Cap fight off Red Skull during World War II.
What are you two so happy about?
He also appears in an alternate future episode, but we won't count that one since it's already in a dark timeline. Captain America later appears on Spider-Man during the Secret Wars arc, which is also where Iron Man and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men come along with the Red Skull. The voice actor for Cap is different, but given that the Red Skull voice actor is the same, Cedric Smith, who also voiced Professor X.
Hear me, X-Men! I need you in the war room immediately.
I feel confident saying that these are the same versions of the character and simply a recasting. Thor, God of Thunder, played by Gimli himself, John Rhys-Davies, appeared in both Fantastic Four and The Incredible Hulk, and has a non-speaking cameo in X-Men. All the same version of the character as far as I'm concerned.
'Tis Thor who owes a debt to thee, Reed Richards.
War Machine is basically the second lead of Iron Man, as it should be, and as such, the same version of War Machine appears the same places Iron Man does. X-Men, Spider-Man, Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk. Supremely consistent. However, another fun fact, for the first 6 episodes of Iron Man, James' Uncle Phil Avery played Rhodey, and after that he was replaced by Dorian Harewood for the rest of the series and most of the characters' guest appearances, except James Avery came back for the episode of Spider-Man because Harewood was already voicing Tombstone on Spider-Man. Doctor Strange is another of those characters with a silent cameo in X-Men. He later appears in an episode named after him in Spider-Man the Animated Series. On that show, he's voiced by John Vernon, aka Dean Wormer from Animal House.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Strange appears next on The Incredible Hulk, but different in both appearance and attitude, here voiced by Maurice LaMarche. Why wouldn't John Vernon come back to voice him? Oh, probably because Vernon was already a series regular on The Incredible Hulk, voicing Thunderbolt Ross. Get new casting directors, shows! Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, is a main character on Iron Man Season 1, and also appears in an episode of X-Men the Animated Series. However, the depictions and voices are drastically different. Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, appears on both Spider-Man the Animated Series and Fantastic Four the Animated Series, totally and completely unrelated to each other. Daredevil was possibly going to get his own animated series on Fox, which would have presumably been the same version of the character from Spider-Man, but who can really say? Nick Fury, on the other hand, appears in both Spider-Man and Iron Man and is for sure the same character, while Doctor Doom is the same on Fantastic Four and The Incredible Hulk, but totally different on Spider-Man.
You're just a very disturbed human being.
Are you staying with me? Spider-Man also had a million other Marvel characters pop up, like Blade, Morbius, Punisher, Kingpin, Dormammu, and Wong, but none of them ever appeared in any other series, so there's nothing to contradict.
Does know Spider-Man. He's cool.
Knowing Spider-Man does not make him cool.
And that is essentially all the pertinent characters who cross over. So can you see why this has driven me to the point of madness? So let's see if we can actually nail down how many different universes we're dealing with here, because clearly they can't all be the same one. We know X-Men and Spider-Man all take place in the same continuity. Nothing about those particular shows contradict each other. X-Men never really worried much about the greater Marvel universe, given the X-verse has roughly 94 million characters, so thankfully we don't have a ton of problems with the X-Men cartoon. The only times X-Men had any crossovers with the larger Marvel universe in their cartoon was during the multi-episode Phoenix Saga and Dark Phoenix Saga. That's where you'll find most of the non-speaking cameos I've been mentioning. They were there essentially to show just how large the problems are the X-Men and the Earth are facing. If even Doctor Strange and Thor can't with Dark Phoenix, how are Professor X and the team supposed to? You can watch that show almost totally in isolation anyway. Spider-Man has the highest number of crossover characters, mostly owing to that Secret Wars arc toward the end of season 5. Just like in the comics, Secret Wars here prided itself on bringing in characters from all across the Marvel universe, teaming up with Spider-Man to battle a larger cosmic threat. I remember as a kid thinking this was the coolest stuff I'd ever seen, especially after watching all of those other shows. Secret Wars aired at the tail end of the golden age of Marvel cartoons, a year after X-Men had concluded and well after Iron Man and Fantastic Four ended. As such, it's a bit of a bow for the Marvel Animated Universe, which was really the Marvel Animated Multiverse. The series as a whole offers us a few weird discrepancies, but almost entirely with characters who appeared elsewhere first. Also, not really anywhere else to put this, but Spider-Man Unlimited. Depending on who you ask, this is a maybe, kinda, sorta supposed to be a continuation of Spider-Man the Animated Series, taking place in an alternate dystopian version of New York, where Spidey from the main universe ends up over there. This was just an attempt to get some of that sweet futuristic hype viewership from Batman Beyond, but that never worked out. Completely different voice cast, almost unrecognizable characters, and a premise that feels a lot less like the comics. I would say in every way that counts, it's not connected. You can watch it on its own and never feel like it's the next chapter of anything. The Iron Man of it all is really something. If not for the Iron Man series, the two continuities would be more or less completely fine. Fox shows and UPN/syndicated shows, but Iron Man crosses the streams. Even more curiously, it's Iron Man's appearances on the other shows on the network his show is actually on that cause all the problems. How can the same Iron Man and War Machine appear in 4 different shows, but characters that appear in the Iron Man show with those same 2 characters have different versions in the other shows that they cross over with? The crux of the issues are different Doctor Stranges appear in both Spider-Man and Incredible Hulk. Same with Daredevil, who is different between Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. And different Scarlet Witch appears in X-Men and Iron Man. And this is all fine, but the same X-Men and Iron Man both appear in the Spider-Man series. Iron Man, as played by Robert Hayes, is really great. I'm happy he appears on so many shows, but goddammit if he doesn't totally play havoc with this entire continuity. No, he doesn't play havoc, he plays Iron Man. All of these shows both do and do not appear in the same universe as each other. And yes, we can say that it's just down to something being like, oh hey, we're gonna put Iron Man in the show, let's get the guy who's been playing him already. But how can you watch all of these shows and not sit there and pick apart all of this forever? It's the multiverse!
Wait, you dig on multiverses?
That's the answer for everything. Is Tony Stark jumping universes? Maybe. Is he the only constant in the entire multiverse? That's possible. Maybe Tony Stark is Uatu the Watcher, and that means he technically does appear in Silver Surfer and simply watches over the entirety of 90s animation. Tony Stark is on Darkwing Duck if you look for him. Iron Man was on Dexter's Laboratory and Captain Planet too. Don't argue with me, just take my word for it. Everything is one thing. As a kid, I never cared one way or another about this. But now as an adult who spends his entire life picking apart the multiversal implications of fictional universes, the 90s Marvel animated series have proven so confusing and so nonsensical in their seeming attempts to cross over that I want to write a letter to Greenpeace about it. In summation, the 90s Marvel cartoons have done my head in. My head? She is done. Please offer your condolences by leaving a comment and liking this video. It'd do wonders for my well-being. What was your favorite of these Marvel animated series from the 90s? Besides X-Men. Everyone knows it's X-Men. Why did the symbiote hate Shocker so much? Never figured that out.
Shocker!
We'll be back with another long video, and for everything else in the world of pop culture, please keep it glued to Nerdist.com. Good night, folks.